إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. So this is our third lesson on the explanation of Nawaqid al-Islam, and in the previous lesson we started the commentary of Shaykh Ubaid al-Jabiri hafidhahullah, and in that lesson, in that section, we established the meaning of Naqd, which is the singular of Nawaqid. What is the meaning of that word, Naqd? And we said that it is to undo something which is already established. For example, a rope, to untangle a rope, or when you have braids and the braids are undone, right? To make something dissolute, to undo something, to unwind something. So this could be in relation to something physical, which is hissi. So that's the example that we gave. Or it could be something which is conceptual, in meaning only. And so the example the Shaykh gave was a contract or an agreement which is broken. So this was the meaning of Naqd, Naqid, and the plural Nawaqid. And as for Islam, the Shaykh explained Islam, that Islam, when we speak of Islam, then Islam, it could be intended by that Islam which is al-Kawni al-Qadari. All this simply means is that in the whole of the creation, everyone is equal in terms of the laws of creation. Allah's, the causes and effects, the mechanisms. For example, the way everybody breathes, the way everybody dies, the way everybody is given sustenance, and all of the individual, like the physical, the chemical, the biological, all the various laws that the creation operates upon. In that respect, everyone is submitting to Allah. Even the kafir, the disbeliever, even the mushrik, when he commits shirk. From the creational point of view, just from the purely how the creation works, that kafir and that mushrik is in submission to Allah, in the sense that he is governed by the laws of Allah and the mechanisms that Allah put in the creation, which are physical, chemical, biological, so on and so forth. He cannot escape from that. So in that sense, everything is in a state of Islam. So this is not the Islam that the prophets and messengers call to, because that is related to something which is the qada and the qadr of Allah Azza wa Jal, which is accepted by people, and it's already established and affirmed in the sense that no one denies that Allah's creation is by way of these laws and mechanisms and so forth. But the Islam that we are speaking of when we say Nawaqid al-Islam, that Islam is the Islam which the prophets and messengers call to. And this is the Islam which, as we said, it has three elements. Al-istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed, which is to submit to Allah upon tawheed, inwardly to accept His tawheed, to believe in His tawheed, and to make one's heart submit to Allah in respect to that. And then to wal-inqiyad lahu bit-ta'ah, then to obey Him, to comply with Him and to obey His commands. And after that, al-bara'atu min ash-shirki wa ahlih, to free oneself from shirk and its people. This is the Islam that the prophets and messengers call to, and this is the Islam that we are speaking of when we speak of the Nawaqid. I know we mentioned some texts in relation to that, which establish that this is the meaning that we find in the texts in the Quran, and particularly in the Sunnah. We mentioned a number of texts in that regard. So once this is established, that when a person says the Shahada and affirms this Tawheed, he enters into Islam, then his blood, his wealth, and his honor is protected, unless there is a violation of that which is from the rights of Islam. And we mentioned the text in that regard, and we said that the Sharia explains what those rights are, what those specific rights are. And that would be things like adultery, committing adultery. It would be, murder, deliberate murder. It would be irtidad, which is to, make tabdeel of one's deen and to abandon the deen. So there are certain things in the Sharia which are from the rights of Islam, on account of which that blood would no longer be inviolable. So once that is established, and that's where we stopped in the previous lesson, we'll continue from today. So today is the start of the third lesson then. Now, before we continue any further, there are two important points that Shaykh Ubaid al-Jabri hafidhahullah mentions, which are very important. He says that let every Muslim, man and woman, know two affairs in which some people have begun to play around and fool around with respect to. And he means here the various jama'at of da'wah, the various, modern or recent groups which have appeared in the 20th century. And he's alluding specifically here to the Muslim Brotherhood, al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun. And these groups have come along, and they are really political groups with political objectives. And they've started to play and fool around with aspects of the religion and to make them subservient to their political agendas. And what they've done is they have taken this issue of what Islam is, what is the definition, the actual meaning of Islam, and what Tawheed is, and they've played around with it and distorted it in order to call to things like, for example, unity of religions, and use certain terms like the heavenly religions, the divinely revealed religions, things like that, terms like that. So in relation to that, the first point that the Shaykh wants to clarify, first of all, is that Allah Azza wa Jal never sent any prophet or messenger except with a single religion, meaning that the deen was always one. The deen of every single prophet and messenger is only one, and it is Islam. It is Islam. There is only one deen. There are no multiple deens in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal. And in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, Inna ad-deena inda Allahi al-Islam. Inna ad-deena inda Allahi al-Islam. Indeed, the deen with Allah is Islam. Surah Ali Imran, Surah 3, verse 19. And likewise he said, وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ. Whoever seeks or desires other than Islam as a deen, it will never be accepted from him. Surah Ali Imran again, 3 verse 85. And likewise the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu وَالْأَنْبِيَاءُ إِخْوَةٌ لِعَلَّاتٍ أُمَّهَاتُهُمْ شَتَّى وَدِينُهُمْ وَاحِدٌ. The meaning of which is that the prophets are basically like brethren, having different mothers, though their religion is one and the same. Is one and the same. And so what this establishes then is that this one deen that the prophets and messengers were sent with is Islam, and no other deen is acceptable to Allah. And what makes it even clearer is that in Surah Al-Bayyinah, towards the end of the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentions the kufr, the disbelief of those other groups. So He says, لَمْ يَكُنِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ وَالْمُشْرِكِينَ مُنْفَقِينَ حَتَّى تَأْتِيهُمُ الْبَيِّنَةِ, to the end of to the whole surah, in fact. And here, this surah basically speaks of the disbelievers and the mushrikeen. The Ahl al-Kitab, the disbelievers amongst Ahl al-Kitab, and the mushrikeen. So all of those groups outside of Islam, they are either Ahl al-Kitab, people of the book, which is Yahud and Nasara, or they are the mushrikeen in all their various different types and forms, whether we are speaking of the pagan Arabs, idol worshippers, whether we are speaking of the Persian fire worshippers, the Magians, whether we are speaking of the Hindus, whether we are speaking of, all the rest are from among the mushrikeen. So, this then makes it clear that the religion acceptable to Allah is the religion of Ibrahim, the religion of Hanafiyyah, and it is not Yahudiyyah or Nasraniyyah or Shirkiyyah, whatever other forms and manifestations that there might be. So from these texts that you've heard, from all of these texts, that the religion with Allah is one, whoever seeks other than Islam as a deen will not be accepted, and that the Ahlul Kitab and the Mushrikeen, that they are upon disbelief, then all of this makes it clear to the people of intelligence, to the people of insight, that Allah Azza wa Jal never sent any messenger or prophet except with this deen, which is Islam. Now, someone might come along and they might try to bring some arguments, and they might try to beautify that position, and they might, to try and argue that there are other adyan which are also divinely revealed. They try to make arguments for that. So one of those arguments that they might bring is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran, لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. This verse translates roughly to that to everyone amongst you we have made a shir'ah and a minhaj. We have made for you basically a way, like a legislation and a way and a methodology. And this is in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Surah 5, verse number 48. Surah 5, verse number 48. Now, this ayah is then used to basically argue that this is a reference to multiple religions. It is a reference to the fact that Isa alayhi salam had a shir'ah and a minhaj, and Musa alayhi salam had a shir'ah and a minhaj, and others, they were given a way, a path, a way. And so they use this to try and argue that therefore there are multiple divinely revealed religions. So the answer to this, the Shaykh says, is what is first of all narrated by al-Bukhari from Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, who said in relation to these words, shir'atan wa minhaja, he said, sabilan wa sunnatan. Sabilan wa sunnatan. Meaning that to every nation that was sent a prophet and messenger, that we have made for them a way, a sabil or a sunnah, a path, a legislation. This is what is meant. So for Musa alayhi salam there was a particular legislation, and we mean here by legislation things to do with purification, things to do with prayer, things to do with what is haram, what is halal, things to do with inheritance, relations, all of the things that pertain to law, to the issues of law. And no doubt every prophet or every messenger, he was given a law or a way for his particular people, suitable for that particular time. And in that respect, then each religion, that whenever Allah revealed Islam to a prophet, then perhaps that sharia, that minhaj, that legislation was different from another prophet or another messenger was sent. So no doubt this is what is meant by way of that ayah. As for the foundation of the deen, then it is always tawheed. There is no difference between the message of any of the prophets and messengers. So from this, we then come to understand the point that what is referred to as Yahudiyyah and Nasraniyyah from the Ahlul Kitab, from the people of the book, that these are not diyanat samawiyah. Diyanat samawiyah. These are not divinely revealed religions. Because, by which Allah is worshipped and by which you become closer to Allah. And this is because if you ask the question, did Allah Azza wa Jal send Musa alayhi salam with a deen that is called Judaism, Yahudiya? And the answer is no. The answer is no. Rather, and likewise, did Allah Azza wa Jal send Isa alayhi salam to call to a religion which is called Nasraniya, or Christianity? And the answer is no. These words are unknown to those prophets and messengers to use these terms to refer to the deen that they were calling to. Rather, these two titles, Yahudiya, Nasraniya, they are simply labels or names to people, to a specific people. Nasraniya, Nazarenes, refers to a particular group and a sect that emerged after Isa alayhi salam, and Yahudiya refers to a specific tribe from the tribes of Israel. And these people, they distorted the scripture, they distorted the Torah, distorted the Injil, they departed from the teachings and the messages of Musa alayhi salam, and therefore we cannot say that these are divinely revealed religions. And once we understand all of this, it then becomes clear that those people from, like the Muslim Brotherhood, from those misguided callers who come along and say, and they start using terms and language that, the divinely revealed religions, or the Abrahamic faiths, trying to say that Yahudiya and Nasraniya is Abrahamic, right? All of this is batil, it is false, it is incorrect. And also, it shows the error in the statement when you say that Judaism and Christianity is abrogated. This is also an incorrect statement, because they weren't sound religions to begin with, such that you can now say they are abrogated. Do you understand? Right? So, this is because they were not valid religions to begin with, such that they have now been abrogated. Rather, what the situation is that Musa alayhi salam, he called to Islam. He called to Tawheed, and he had a sabil and a sunnah, a shir'ah, a legislation that the people were ordered to cling to. That's what he brought: Islam, Tawheed, and a legislation. Over time, the people departed from that, and then they created a tribal religion known as Judaism. They introduced many of the things they picked up of baggage from other nations: magic, astrology, superstition, distorted the law, played about with the law, right? They turned their rabbis into gods besides Allah, gave them obedience and worship. They packaged all of this, and this was the deen that they were upon when Isa alayhi salam came, right? So what they were upon was not a valid religion, such that we can now say it was abrogated. No, it was a distorted, rather it is a muharraf, mubaddal deen. It's the deen which is muharraf, distorted, and mubaddal, which is altered and changed, right? It is invalid to worship Allah through that. And likewise, the same thing with the Nasara. By the time the Messenger of Allah was sent, they obviously departed, they turned into shirk, paganism, polytheism. They gave Isa alayhi salam divine attributes. They made Allah Azza wa Jal to be in the form of a human. And they built a fabricated religion around that. They abolished the law completely, the Torah. They said, no need to stick to that anymore. You can eat pork, you can drink wine, you don't need to be circumcised, you don't need to adhere to the law. Everything, and it became muharraf and mubaddal. Right? So it is a deen batil to begin with, aslan. We don't say that it became abrogated by the sending of the messenger, because aslan, foundationally, it wasn't a deen acceptable to Allah to begin with. So this is indicated by the Shaykh, and mentions a hadith from Jabir bin Abdullah radiallahu anhu, who said that Umar ibn al-Khattab, he came to the Prophet ﷺ with a book that he took from some of the people of the book, and he began to read it upon the Prophet ﷺ. Basically, he got a piece of the Torah and he started reading it to the Prophet ﷺ. So he became angry, and he said, أَمُتَحَوِّكُونَ فِيهَا يَا ibn al-Khattab? He said, are we confused about this, O son of al-Khattab? وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ لَوْ أَنَّ مُوسَى كَانَ حَيًّا مَا وَسِعَهُ إِلَّا أَن يَتَّبِعَنِي. that even if Musa alayhi salam was alive, by him in whose hand is my soul, even if he was alive, he would not, it would not suffice him except that he should follow me, except for him to follow me. So this is the first thing that we should be aware of. These are the statements and claims of the people like Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun, the Muslim Brotherhood, and likewise amongst the Sufis who believe that there are multiple paths to Allah because only Allah is in existence, wahdatul wujud. Then this then leads to that if there is only Allah in existence, then whatever anyone is worshipping, that is Allah. And so therefore this means that every religion is therefore a valid religion. So the fire worshipper worships the fire, which is Allah. Therefore that's a valid religion. And the Nasrani worships Isa al-Islam, who is Allah, and that's a valid religion. And then the mushrik, the polytheist who worships the elephant or the idol or whatever, then he's worshipping Allah as well. So therefore all religion is valid. This is the saying of the extreme Sufis, right? So this is what we find with Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun, and likewise from the extreme Sufis. All of this is falsehood. So this was the first affair that the Shaykh wanted to point out. The second affair that the Shaykh wanted to point out is that we in the previous point we established that there is a foundation of the religion which is Tawheed. Right? So that foundation, which is the same between all of the prophets and messengers, then the Shaykh says, then this is the second point, that all of the prophethoods and all of the messengerships, they are agreed from the time of Nuh alayhi salam to Muhammad sallam, which is that the foundation of this religion rests upon two pillars. Number one, ad-da'watu ila tawheed. Ad-da'watu ila tawheed, which is calling to Tawheed. And al-mawalat fih, which is making loyalty, showing loyalty on account of it. Showing loyalty on account of it. That we are loyal on the basis of this Tawheed. Loyal to other people who are upon Tawheed. And likewise the disbelief of the one who abandoned it. Disbelief of the one who abandoned it. So this is all the first of the two foundations. Calling to Tawheed, making muwalat, loyalty on its basis, and speaking with the disbelief of whoever rejected it or abandoned it. The second foundation is at-tahdhir min ash-shirk fi ibadati Allahi wahdah, which is to then warn and caution against shirk in the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal, and to have al-mu'adat, which is to have enmity centered around that, wa takfir man fa'alahu, and to declare as upon disbelief the one who does that. So these are the two foundations of the religion. Basically, they are the essence of La ilaha illallah. La ilaha, there is none worthy of worship except Allah. Illallah. We worship only Allah upon Tawheed, we abandon all other false deities, and we make loyalty and disloyalty on the basis of that. And so this is indicated in the texts very clearly. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا فَاعْبُدُونَ. We did not send before you any messenger except that we inspired to him, there is none which has the right to be worshipped except me, so worship me alone. Surah Al-Anbiya 21 verse 25. And likewise, every single prophet and messenger, as you know, in some of the surahs of the Quran, like Surah Al-A'raf, Surah Al-Anbiya, where many of the stories of the prophets are recounted, we see that each of the prophets or the messengers is ascribed a statement that they said to their people. They said, Ya qawmi ibudullah, ma lakum min ilahin ghayruh. O my people, worship Allah alone. You have no other deity besides him. So as an example, Surah Al-A'raf, verse number 59. 7 verse number 59. So, this foundation that we are speaking of, that the religion is of two foundations, You can see it clearly embodied within this statement. It is within this statement. U'budullah, worship Allah, ma lakum ilahun, ma lakum min ilahin ghayrah. You have no other ilah besides him. So look at, there are two parts. There are two parts to this. The Shaykh says that if the prophets and messengers came and they said, worship Allah, ya qawmi ibudullah, if this is the only thing they said, there would have been no dispute, because everyone would have agreed upon worshipping Allah. Because yes, they do worship Allah. The mushriks, they worship Allah. So there's no issue with that, and there would have been no difference, no controversy, no enmity, no separation, no splitting, no differing. Everyone would have been agreed upon worshipping Allah. However, we see that the prophets and messengers, they brought the criterion, and the criterion is ma lakum min ilahin ghayruh. You have no other deity besides him. So when the prophets and messengers called to this is when they began to say, are you telling us to abandon our gods? Are you telling us to abandon what our forefathers used to be upon? Are you telling us to abandon that which we are used to and accustomed to? And the reason why there was enmity is because around shirk, around these false deities, these people had obviously built up religious systems, practices, systems, and on top of that was built exploitation of the people and things of that nature that you find within all false religion. And so their interests were being challenged when it was said to them, ma lakum min ilahin ghayruh. You have no other deity besides him. And so realizing that this now was a challenge to their interests, even though they knew that it was the truth. So they knew that la ilaha illallah is the truth. They knew that this tawheed is the truth. But then they had certain interests. So that's why much of the disbelief of these people was due to pride and arrogance, or because of love of the way of their forefathers, or because they didn't want to lose the worldly status, right? They knew it was the truth, but it was these factors that were preventing them. So they understood what it meant, what it implied when the messenger said, "Ma lakum min ilahin ghayruh." This is the part that they had the dispute with. As for saying "U'budullah," then they had no dispute with it at all. So that's why in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says that the pagans, that they said, أَجَعَلَ الْآلِهَةَ إِلَهًا وَاحِدًا. Has He turned all of the gods into a single God? إِنَّ هَذَا لَشَيْءٌ عُجَابٌ. Indeed, this is a strange and mighty affair. So when the Messenger of Allah called those mushrikeen to worship only one deity, they scoffed back in surprise and in amazement. Has He made all of the deities into just one deity? Indeed, this is a strange and amazing affair. So, what do we gather from all of this? What do we gather from these 2 points that the Shaykh wanted to explain? The first one, this issue about religions, heavenly religions, and and refuting this idea and establishing that there is only one deen, it is Islam. And secondly, that this deen of Islam, its foundation is what? It is, we discussed it previously in the previous lesson, al-istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed, wal-inqiyad lahu bit-ta'ah, wal-bara'atu min ash-shirk wa ahlihi. And we repeated it again now here in a slightly different way, but it's the same thing in 2 parts this time. We said it is to call to tawheed, and to entice upon that, and to make muwalat, which is loyalty upon it, and to hold the disbelief of the one who left it, and to warn against shirk, and to show enmity on its basis, and to make takfir of the one who fell into it, who fell into shirk. Right? So that's now the foundation of Islam. What this now tells us, the Shaykh now goes on to mention something important. He says, وَبِهَذَا تَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّ by this you will know أَنَّ مَا يُحَوِّنُ مِنْ أَمْرِ التَّوْحِيدِ, that which is belittled with respect to the affair of Tawheed, and what is made weak in the hearts of the people by way of beautified statements. And he gives 3 examples. He says, so in other words, he's saying there are certain people out there who will try to now weaken this understanding of Islam or this affair of Tawheed in the hearts of the people. There are people out there. And for example, bil aqwal, by way of statements which are beautified statements. For example, مثل التوحيد ليس أهم الأمور. التوحيد ليس أهم الأمور. So from these statements that are spread by the people is they say, Tawheed is not the most important of affairs. Tawheed is not the most important of affairs. And you will be amazed. You might think that this is far-fetched that people would say this. That this is far-fetched that people that might say this. But there are people who've passed through Islamic institutions, graduated with degrees, and they make the likes of these remarks. For example, I will give you an example of a misguiding individual by the name of Shaykh Muhammad. This individual is from America. He passed through the University of Medina, and he made a statement recorded with his voice in one of his shows, and he says that these people always speak about Tawheed, Tawheed, Tawheed. Fix your relationship with Allah and focus on Tawheed, and as if by magic, everything will become, everything will work out and become all right. This is not logical. This is not realistic. These are his exact words that the meaning that I'm saying to you, right? So, and this is what he's saying. At-Tawheed laysa aham al-umur. This statement and that statement is basically the same. And he's basically saying that rather than that, we focus, there's like social affairs, there's issues of drugs, there's issues of crime, there's issues of this, whatever. So this shows that this individual, one of the signs that you've truly understood Tawheed is that you rectify the society in the way that the prophets and messengers rectified the society. Right? قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي. You cannot be a person who has truly understood Tawheed unless you are a follower of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu in calling people to Tawheed upon that particular methodology. Right? Now the fact that a person can pass through an Islamic institution and spend 6 years of his life or more and then make a remark like this shows that this individual has not understood Tawheed. And we have to make a distinction between an understanding of the heart, fiqh, an understanding of the heart, and an academic understanding, right? An intellectual understanding. And those two are not the same thing. They're not the same thing. So people like this that we are speaking of, they will have a rational understanding of what Tawheed is. They can maybe explain what Tawheed is. But that's not the understanding that by which a person is actually guided. Right? It's not until the heart grasps and understands that Tawheed, and until a person's whole, his whole program, his da'wah, his minhaj, his methodology, his, how he goes about rectifying the society. It's not until we see that in his actions till we truly know, has he understood Tawheed or not. Because this man, when he makes the likes of this remark, when he makes the like of this statement, he's clearly not understood that all of the social problems and the social ills and the evils, whether it is evil rulers, whether it is economic hardships, whether it is social problems to do with violence, crime, drugs, whether it is, social ills to do with relationships, things like that. All of these issues, they arise because of some deeper underlying problems. And these deeper underlying problems always return back to the issues of Tawheed and Iman and Aqidah, and likewise deeds of oppression that individuals do that then translate into calamities which come and affect and engulf the whole of the society. So there's cause and effect mechanisms that are there. So if you come along, you say, well, let's leave Tawheed. To believe that Tawheed is going to rectify the society is like magic, is magical thinking. I mean, this in itself, to be honest, is a statement of disbelief. To actually make the likes of these remarks, the statement of kufr, of disbelief. And it shows the person hasn't understood the qada and the qadr of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the qada and the qadr of Allah Azza wa Jal, we know, is how the whole of Allah's creation operates. It indicates His rububiyyah. And if you haven't understood His rububiyyah, then that would explain why you make why you make the types of statements like this one. So listen to what the Shaykh is saying. That through all of what we've discussed, you will come to know that these people who belittle the affair of Tawheed, who weaken it in the hearts of the people and in their souls by way of these beautified statements. لَيْسَ التَّوْحِيدُ أَحَمَّ الْأُمُورِ. And this also tells us another thing, that we shouldn't be deceived, because now you see coming in the West, there are many of these people coming from Islamic institutions, and we don't mean to belittle the affair of seeking knowledge and gaining qualifications, because this is part and parcel of Islamic knowledge. It's from the means and mechanisms of Islamic knowledge. But we should not be deceived into thinking that a person is automatically upon guidance just because he passes through these institutions. Because guidance is in the hand of Allah, and the hearts are in between the fingers of Ar-Rahman. And to whomever Allah intends to show goodness, He will give him fiqh of the religion. Many people, they have academic knowledge, rational knowledge, but it is not fiqh of the actual deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. And therefore they make tremendous mistakes in the religion, like you see this individual. That's just one of his numerous other calamities. In fact, another one of his calamities, in one of his live broadcasts, a person, he's discussing the same social problems, and a person writes something in the message, something along the lines, well, maybe Allah will sort this out. We don't know what it was, because we can't see the chat. So in response he says, no man, we can't wait for Allah to rectify this. We can't wait for Allah to rectify this. We've got to rectify this. We've got to rectify this. We made this mess. Only we can fix it. Right? So listen to what he's saying. We can't wait for Allah to come and rectify this. This is a statement of jahl. This is a statement of a fool and a safih. And in fact, this was played to Shaykh. The Shaykh Fawzan was asked this question: What do you say about a man who says this? That we can't wait for Allah until He rectifies our situation. We've got to. He said, this man is a safih, an idiot. Report him to the authorities. Whoever is in charge of report him. So the point being that we shouldn't be deceived just because a person is a caller and he has credentials, has qualifications, without meaning to belittle those credentials or qualifications or the institutions where they are given. But the point being that Allah Azza wa Jal, He guides whom He wills and He misguides whom He wills, and we have to be careful from whom we take our religion, our deen, and not to be deceived by appearances and forms. So that's the first of the three types of statements. Second statement that people might come along and say, al-tawheed mafhum wa ma'loom. Al-tawheed mafhum wa ma'loom. What do they mean by this? They mean by this, well, we know Tawheed now. We've understood Tawheed. Tawheed is rububiyyah, uluhiyyah, asma wa sifat. It is to single out Allah in worship, ifradullahi bil ibadah. We know Tawheed. It is al-kufr bit taghut. Like I said, that this is all just academic, rational knowledge. A disbeliever can come and tell you the same knowledge. There are many disbelievers who understand Tawheed, from the Yahud, from the Nasara, from the atheists, from other than this. Yes, I know what Tawheed is in Islam. It means that you believe Allah is the creator, provider, sustainer, and nobody else besides Him provides, creates and sustains. And it means therefore that you should worship only God alone. So things like prayer, sacrifice, love, fear. This is what is Tawheed. There are many amongst the disbelievers who will come and they will explain this to you with the Arabic terminology, with the Arabic terms. But this is not what is desired. What is desired is that this Tawheed enters into the hearts of the people and it defines the relationship between them and between Allah, and they actualize it in their beliefs, in their statements, in their actions. That's something totally different. That is something that, to spread this within a society, it takes time, it takes da'wah, it takes ilm, then it takes amal, that you act upon that amal, then it takes da'wah, you call, then you have sabr upon that, right? To bring it, to put it into the society and to make the people's hearts connected to Allah instead of other deities, or instead of being attached to wealth and things like that. This takes time. And it's not just a matter of academically knowing these affairs, rather it's making people their hearts to be filled with Tawheed, to love Tawheed, to become attached to Allah, to worship Allah, until everything around them it then changes. This is how you bring change within a society. This is what is desired. So when people come along and they say at-Tawheed mafhumun wa ma'lumun, meaning that they are sick of this preaching about Tawheed all the time. Don't we know now what is major shirk and minor shirk? Don't we know now what are the three classifications of Tawheed? Don't we know that now? Don't our kids know that now? This is how they speak. And how many times are you going to teach Usul al-Thalath? How many times are you going to teach Kitab al-Tawheed? Speech like this. This is from the greatest of jahl and ignorance. And this is because man, by his nature, he is dhaloom and jahul. He's oppressive, he's transgressing by nature, he's ignorant by nature. And, mankind as a whole is prone to misguidance. And look at how many nations Iblis, how he destroyed them, how he led them astray in small, imperceptible steps. Look at how Ibrahim alayhi salam, he said, when he called upon Allah and he asked, prevent me and my offspring from that we na'bud al-asnam, from that we worship the idols, right? Because these prophets and messengers, they understood the reality of human nature and the tricks of Iblis, the deceptive tricks of Iblis, and how he misguides whole nations, but in very, very small steps, lasting, the whole process takes maybe hundreds of years or many generations. And at each stage, you will not really notice what's going on. And he uses like subtle innovations, and then they grow, and then step by step, and then you are into full-blown shirk without even realizing it, and you think it is guidance, you think it is from the religion. So the likes of this statement, at-Tawheed mafhumun wa ma'lumun, is from the greatest of jahl that comes from these types of people. And it's something that weakens Tawheed in the hearts of the people. It belittles Tawheed, it weakens it in the souls. And the third, دعونا نبحث في أمور أخرى. Another statement which is said, just leave us, let us investigate into other affairs. We've had enough of Tawheed. It's been taught enough now. We understand the definition of Tawheed, ifradullahi bil ibadah. We know it's three types, al-rububiyyah, uluhiyyah, wal-asma'i wa-sifat. And we know the evidences for that from the Quran. And we know what is shirk, and we know what is taghut. We know all this, we've studied this. Can't we just leave it now and focus upon other things? How about we focus upon the rulers and oppression and injustice? How about we focus upon social ills and evils? How about we focus upon racism? How about we focus and all these other types of things which are really side issues, which are forms of corruption, and they are types of ills which are a consequence of something else. They are a consequence of something else within the scheme of things, within the scheme of Allah's qadr, and His the asbab and causes and effects and so on and so forth. And so this is what they say: دعونا نبحث في أمور أخرى. Leave us, let us go on and look into other things. And likewise they say, how can you كيف تتمسكون بالقشور وتدعون الألباب? Why are you just sticking always to the peel and you are leaving the essence? Like when you have an orange, the peel is the outside. The peel is the outside. And the essence is on the inside. The actual fruit is on the inside. So they say, why are you always speaking about the peel? Meaning, why are you always speaking about Tawheed? Why are you always speaking about Aqidah? This is just like the peel. The real issue, the the essence, the real issue, this is the tyrannical rulers. This is the social evils that we are engulfed in, right? The social ills. This is what they say. This is what they mean. And so by all of these statements, التوحيد ليس أهم الأمور التوحيد مفهوم فهمناه ومعلوم دعونا نبحث في أمور أخرى, and why do you stick around the peel and leave the essence, the substance? All of these are statements which weaken the position of Tawheed in the hearts of the people. And this is great misguidance. In fact, the Shaykh then goes on to say, indeed, these people who make the likes of these statements are one of two men, are only one of two men. There is no third to them. أحد رجلين لا ولا ثالث لهما. Either he is number one, جاهل من الحمج الرعاع يتبعون كل ناعق. This is just like a person from the common riffraff from the common riffraff, and they just follow everyone who just comes and shouts and calls. Everyone who makes a noise, they go and follow him. Either he's one of those people, just an ignoramus, a common from the riffraff, just follows every person who comes and shouts and makes a call. He just goes and follows behind him. Ignorant person. Or ضال مضل صاحب هوى. Or he is a misguided person who misguides other people, a person who follows his desires. And from this, we should understand that in fact, the Shaykh goes on to say that Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he summarized it nicely when he said that الناس ثلاثة. الناس ثلاثة. People are only of three types. There are only three types of people. عالم رباني. عالم رباني, which is a nurturing scholar, a learned scholar, deeply rooted in knowledge, and then he cultivates people upon that knowledge. He teaches them the foundations and the important, deeply rooted foundational issues first. Then he nurtures them with knowledge bit by bit, leading them to perfection and cultivating them. This is the alim rabbani. This is one of three people. Or it is ومتعلم على سبيل نجاة. Or it is a student who is upon the path of deliverance. This is the second person. And then there's only the third category left. وحمج رعاء يتبعون كل ناعق. وحمج رعاء يتبعون كل ناعق. And there is left, the only third category is the common riffraff who follow everyone who comes along, everyone who screams and shouts and just follows behind him. There are only three categories of people, which means that every single person has to be a muta'allim upon the sabil of najat, upon the path of deliverance. This is what we have to be. No matter what we are, which background we are from, whether you are, a husband or a wife or a son or a daughter or a fisherman or a, craftsman or whatever your profession, whatever you are doing, you have no choice but to be a person who's seeking knowledge. You must be seeking knowledge. You must seek knowledge of that by which your basic obligations are fulfilled. We are not saying that you have to become an alim, because only some of the people, Allah gives them tawfiq to become upright scholars. So this is not the demand that's being made. But what this shows is that you must be a muta'allim who is seeking knowledge of the foundations of the deen, by which you remove ignorance from yourself firstly, and by which you fulfill your obligations secondly, and by which you fulfill the obligations to teach those under your authority. Under your authority. There are people in your household who are under your authority. and you have to teach them. So seek that knowledge that allows you to remove that ignorance from them, from yourself and from them, and so that you can fulfill your ibadah. So this means that every person has to be from a student basically. Otherwise, you are only left in the third category, the hamaj and the ra'a. Even if you are from the most intelligent of people, even if you are the most skilled of people in your trade or in your craft, whatever it might be, you could be selling houses, you could be an agent, you could be a systems analyst, you could be an oceanographer, and the most complex, technical, detail, whatever profession that you can think of, you are still from the hamaj ra'a. You are still a commoner, an ignorant commoner. And your skill in the dunya does not remove that status from you. Up until you are a muta'allim upon the sabil of najat. Upon you are seeking knowledge by that which will remove your ignorance. And that shows that no matter what your profession is, you could be a person who carries firewood, collects scrap metal, for example, off the floor and gathers it and sells it. But if you are a muta'allim seeking the deen, then you are in a better category than the hamaj, ra'a, the common folk. And you see people like this, they are physicians, they are doctors, they are whatever else. And anyone who comes along, telling them that, if you want to have children, buy some sweets, go to a certain place, to a certain tomb, and distribute them to the children. Now this is an intelligent man, he's a doctor, right? I've met people like this at the universities. They're age 50, 60 years old, they are professors, and unable to have children. So they go to these people, and they believe what they say, and then they start doing what they tell them. Go to a Jum'ah, buy sweets, give them out to children, and this will, and maybe perhaps some of these actions will involve shirk, or if not at least bid'ah. Right? No knowledge of the deen. So this is just a common riffraff person following everyone who shouts, everyone who makes a call. Right? So you cannot be from the likes of these people. You have to be from the muta'allimun, who are upon the students who are upon the path of deliverance, who are on the path towards deliverance. So Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu, yes, and it's reported by Ibn Asakir, Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, and numerous other sources, Ibn Abdul Bar, rahimahullah, and Abu Nu'aym in Hilyatul Awliya. Numerous sources, they mention that statement. So what we'll do is we'll conclude our lesson there for today. These are just some additional points that the Shaykh wanted to raise or discuss as they relate to the issue of Islam. What is Islam, and the issue of Tawheed, and the importance of Tawheed, and of not belittling the affair of Tawheed. So inshallah there's lots of benefit in that. And so in the next lesson we'll continue we'll return back to the issue of the Nawaqid, and the fact that when we look at people, we look at them either in terms of those who are original disbelievers, someone who's originally a disbeliever like a Yahudi, Nasrani, Mushrik, and someone who can become a non-Muslim from amongst the Muslimin, which now this is irtidad, this is ridda from Islam. And so kufr can be of those two types, and the Shaykh is going to elaborate upon that in the next lesson, and then move on to looking at the issue of shirk itself. So we'll conclude there. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.
Amjad, that was Shaykh Ubayd. We just went through Shaykh Ubayd, yeah?